And welcome to the Brain Wealth Podcast with your host, Bryan Repple. Bryan, interesting topic on the table today, timely topic, not one that a lot of people like to talk about, though. Involves the issue of taxes. But we are getting near the end of 2024, so we have to have this conversation, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Bill. It's part of the planning process is to be responsible, because if you're not addressing these issues, it's like driving down the road and just throwing money, roll your window down and throw money out the window. So I have a special guest on today's show, a friend and advisor of G.A. Repple's, Michael Mandarino. And let me just give a little information on Michael and his background here, because he graduated from one of the most prestigious schools in the country, the United States Military Academy of West Point. So yes, he graduated of West Point and went off to serve our country. And Michael's been in the financial industry since 2002. So just about as long as I've been, in about 22 years for Michael here. And Mike, he lives over in Tampa, Florida. And one of the really cool things is he's really active in his community with leadership coming out of West Point. But really what drives that leadership is backed by his faith. I know Michael for a long time now, and just a great Christian man serving his community and his clients and what he does. And one of his really core interest is and background is really working with CPAs and high income earners and helping them address their tax planning challenges. So Michael, welcome to Brain Wealth. Great to have you on.
Hey, thanks, Bryan. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for the intro as well. Appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, it's been a while. You and I have always talked about getting you on the show and talking about this subject because you have a lot of experience in it, and this has been kind of your focal point. So let me just lay out some disclaimers before we get started around this conversation. We both are licensed individuals, so we have to put our disclaimers out there. So everything we're going to talk about, this is not tax advice. We're not giving any recommendations on any financial instruments or recommendations. Everything needs to be, make sure it's suitable for you. It's in your best interest. And a lot of these programs that we may talk about may have accreditation standards behind them. That's either meeting income or asset base. So after the show, you can always get in touch with myself or Michael to go through your particular situation. And but we are going to cover some other topics that are not particularly accreditation. And we're going to start off with that first, because I think this first conversation is pretty much open for everybody. And it's a topic that I think more people need to be aware of and advisors should be having the conversation of. And it's around a Roth conversion. So let me just kind of lay out the framework real quick, Michael, and then I'll ask you to kind of let you kind of unpack it for the audience. So the question you really have to ask, then you'll agree, Michael, is that you have to ask yourself, if you're contributing money to a 401k, an IRA, a 403b, any of these instruments that you're deferring your tax into the future. You're deferring when you're going to take the money out in the future. And if you're deferring that tax, you have to ask yourself the question, will your taxes be higher or lower 10, 20, or 30 years from now than where they are today? And I always ask the question to clients, Michael, said, tell me one thing you know that's going to be lower in 30 years from now. And not many things we can think of, but taxes is such an impactful one on our money. So let's walk through the Roth conversion. I think that falls into so many people, different age groups, income classes, whether you're a high income earner. So let's kind of just unpack that for the listeners. I think it benefits a broad range of individuals.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Bryan. Yeah, Roth conversion involves transferring funds from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. And when you do this, you pay taxes on the amount that you convert at your current ordinary income tax rate. So the main difference is that unlike the traditional IRA where withdrawals are taxed in retirement, qualified Roth IRA withdrawals are tax-free. So this can be very advantageous for high income earners who expect to be in a higher tax bracket in retirement or who want to minimize required minimum distributions and future tax liabilities. However, Roth conversions can trigger, they can trigger a significant tax bill. And decisions should be really based on many factors such as current tax rates, future income expectations, and overall retirement goals. So a tax advisor, financial advisor can help model out the long-term impact of a Roth conversion.
Yeah, excellent, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the real question that when you're working with an advisor like Michael and myself, you want to be asking yourself is, do you want to pay the tax now or do you want to pay it later? Michael, it's pretty interesting. I just did this for a client the other day because I was showing this individual in her late 40s and she was contributing, maxing out her 401k. And I asked the question, I said, do you have a Roth 401k in there? She goes, yes. So why aren't you maxing that out? Why aren't you paying the tax on the money now? And I showed her a calculation that showed that if you're in the same tax bracket today that you happen to be in 20 years from now, the numbers are identical. Meaning if you pay the tax now or you defer, you put it into a 401k, if you happen to be in the same tax bracket 10, 20, 30 years from now, the growth number is going to be the same. Now, if your tax bracket is just one, if it goes from 20% to 21% in the future, or 25% or 30% in the future, higher than what you are today, you've lost. The government's won. And naturally, let's just kind of walk through that real quick, Michael. I didn't put this in some of our questions, but what are some things that would force you, if nothing changed in your income, what are some, maybe one or two things that could force you into a higher tax bracket in the future if your income stays the same?
Well, a bonus could happen. Folks who get stock payouts. If you're selling a business, you maybe have a large capital gain on a stock that you're actually realizing. That absolutely can bust your adjusted gross income up into that higher bracket.
Well, let's talk about this. How about your kids aren't on payroll anymore if you have kids?
Yeah.
Your kids are off the payroll. That's a deduction that you just went away.
I've heard that recently. It's like, man, I don't have any deductions. My kids are now in college. Like I'm looking for ways to save in taxes.
And that's an increase in taxation right there. Or so many people in a hurry to get their homes paid off. So now they don't have interest deductions anymore. And we also know that the Trump tax changes are going to revert at the end of 2025. That's going to be an increase in taxation. So the games, I always say, like, financial planning is a living, breathing document, a strategy. It's constantly changing. And so taking advantage of these strategies are really critical. So, what are some of the considerations? What are some of the pitfalls of doing a Roth conversion? And what would be like a good time to implement this strategy?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Brian. So some real key considerations for a Roth conversion include what your current and projected tax rates are going to be, your cash flow to cover the tax bill is important, and the time horizon you have to into retirement. So converting when income is temporarily lower, such as during like a gap year or an early retirement, or if you're jointly married and your spouse might be out of work for that year, could be a good opportunity. Potential pitfalls include pushing yourself into a higher tax bracket and potentially losing access to certain credits and deductions that phase out at higher income levels. There's no one size fit all answer, Brian. So it's essential to review your individual situation with a professional who understands both tax laws and long-term retirement planning strategies.
Yeah, great planning advice there. Because I think it's really one of the things you did say was about gap years when maybe income, someone might get laid off. There's not the income. Just had a situation with a new client coming over in Tampa area. And one of the things their existing advisor was showing her was she was entering retirement and she was asking the question to Brian, I want you to show me where we're going to get income from. And I said, how much income do you need? And we walked through it. So I said, all right, you have your Social Security coming in. So we knew her guaranteed income was like the base. Mm-hmm. The existing advisor said, we're going to start pulling money from Roth money that they've been converting over to help supplement our income. And I said, well, why would you do that? Let's take IRA money that you have not converted over, use that as part of income, because when you combine that with Social Security, the majority of it was all tax-free. So now we have the Roth money sitting out there for rainy day effects, for, a storm that comes through and you have to replace yourself or car damage or whatever it may be. Why would you want to use that tax-free money So it's really important. The conversation we're having is to have that conversion factor, to have that money sitting over in the Roth side. So it is available, but you may not convert all of your 401k IRA money. So now you can get into strategies for your income planning and things that are suitable for you. So no, awesome. I think, and reach out to Michael and myself if you want to have more of a detailed conversation, understand the planning and the strategies behind that.
And Bryan, I had a similar conversation with a client as well. And, we talked about they had questions. Hey, when's a good time for us to do the Roth conversion? And, they're both high income earners from their traditional to Roth. Most of them, their money's in a 401k, she's about a year and a half from retirement. So, my question to her was, well, when are you retiring? She goes, probably by February. So that year of February, we're going to really highly look at what her taxes are going to look like that year, because that may be our first opportunity to start converting some of that traditional IRA. And then once she's in retirement, kind of do that same thing when it comes to their income tax planning and their income strategies as well.
Yeah, because the whole game is revolved around helping you keep more of your money. And if you're paying it out through taxation, financial institutions, these different places, if they're getting more of your money, that means you're just going to have less of it to live on, as well as to do legacy planning, transfer down to your family, community giving, other factors. So that's part of this is more strategy planning versus what financial instruments are the best. So Michael, let's kind of move on to, I'm going to get at least two of these other, I think, pretty important subjects. So again, I just want to repeat that this is not investment advice. We're not making any solicitation on any particular programs, offers. Meet with a tax planner to make sure they're suitable, or with Michael and myself to go deeper into your particular situation. So, Michael, when I got in the business in 1998, my dad introduced me to oil and gas planning strategies for accredited investors, people that had income problems. When I say an income problem, that's an individual that may be earning $400, $500, $1 million, $10 million. And these individuals are or they may have stock options coming to you. You just mentioned those, or high capital gains from a piece of real estate, something selling. And they're always looking for strategies to say, hey, how do I offset some of this taxation or reduce it? And this is where one of the programs that we do work with, and Michael's been working with these for many years and very knowledgeable about this. So let's just kind of walk through a very general conversation around oil and gas. We're not going to drill down to the specifics because that could be deemed as recommendations or getting into a specific program. We just want to talk general tax code so listeners can have a broader stroke about what these programs offer. So can you explain like some of the specific tax benefits for investors who participate in oil and gas programs? Talk about maybe what's called the intangible drilling costs. And who might these investments be good for? Who they're suitable for?
Perfect. Yeah, Bryan. So oil and gas investments, they can offer several tax benefits that are outlined in the U.S. tax code. And as you mentioned, one of the primary benefits is the intangible drilling cost deduction, which allows investors to deduct a large portion of their expenses related to the drilling, such as labor, chemicals, and even the fuel expenses. These deductions can be substantial and are available in the first year investment, making it very attractive for those looking to offset active or passive income. However, this type of investment is typically not suitable for most individuals. It's only suitable for accredited investors or high net worth individuals. Accredited investor is someone who, as an individual, makes more than $200,000 for the last 2 previous years and expected to do the same this year. Or if they're joint, it's $300,000 annually, same specification. Or they have more than $1 million of assets excluding their primary home. And it's also for those who are comfortable with higher risk and have a significant taxable income they want to manage. It's critical for potential investors to consult with a tax advisor or a financial advisor to understand these implications to ensure it aligns with their financial objectives and their risk tolerance.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. So one of the things I like kind of compare oil and gas to is when people buy real estate. So when someone buys some real estate and they say, all right, it's like what everyone kind of bashes Trump saying, he doesn't pay any tax. Well, when he buys real estate, he gets to depreciate the real estate. They're writing off the expense of the real estate. And many people do that, not just Trump, but many just people buying single family homes, commercial real estate, multifamily. So in real estate, you get this thing called depreciation. In oil and gas, we get this tax feature called intangible drilling cost. And so that's what Michael just went through. What are some of the things that make up that intangible drilling cost factor there? So great job, Michael. Appreciate you explaining that and what some of the code is talking about, because it is very beneficial for high income earners to find strategies, financial instruments within the tax code that allow them to help offset some of their income tax. And they're also contributing back into America, investing into oil and gas, the drilling of what we want here. And it's a big conversation we're seeing on the debate stage right now. It's energy. So what are some potential risks and maybe even the rewards associated with oil and gas investing? And how would someone evaluate if this fits in their overall strategy, portfolio, risk tolerance even?
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. So investing in oil and gas can have some very high rewards, especially when taking advantage of the upfront tax deductions like intangible drilling costs. In the second year, there's typically a depreciation that's allowed as well. Also, the income, 85% of the income is taxable. 15% does become tax-free. However, it's highly speculative. It's really important to recognize the inherent risks such as price volatility, potential dry wells, environmental regulation changes, and even changes in the government regulation changes as well. It can really affect that. So these factors absolutely can impact the return on the investment, because the complex nature and high risk of these types of investments, it's not for everyone. It's definitely for an investor who should carefully evaluate their overall portfolio diversification, look at their liquidity needs, look at their current tax situation, before considering any type of oil and gas investment. And as always, it's advisable to work with a professional financial advisor or a tax advisor who actually specifies and understands what your unique personal experience is and what your portfolio really looks like, and analyze that to make that best decision for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just nailed kind of the opportunity is for individuals that have high incomes, they're accredited investors, they meet that accreditation standard. And then as well as they can bear the risk because there's an illiquidity factor in some of these programs. And then want to make sure that the programs have done due diligence, that the advisors understand them, and that you're working with your tax professional as well to see where it falls in and make sure that it's suitable and it's in your best interest. So, but I think the part of this conversation is awareness of understanding what strategies are out there to help individuals that are looking for tax programs, tax strategies. And so this is part just bringing awareness to the table for our clients, other listeners, that these are available. And if they're suitable for you, and you want to have a further conversation with Michael and myself, we're available to begin walking through that and make sure that's in your best interest. So this is a fun one, because this is the third kind of a strategy we're talking about here came under the Trump administration, rolled this out, and being Trump as a real estate guy, he saw this was a great place to what are called opportunity zones, and to create revitalization in areas all around the country, to create development opportunities. And so again, this is not a recommendation. This falls into suitability, falls into accreditation. And so we're going to talk high level about what opportunity zones are. I think a lot of people may have heard of them, but they don't really know how to use them. What are these things, and where do they fall in someone's strategy if it is suitable? So, Michael, let me just kind of lay out some framework real quick, because, and then I'll give some context to what I just said there was, if you think about an individual that may be selling a highly appreciated piece of real estate, let's just use real estate as an example. And I had an individual up in Gainesville that was selling a medical office. Client was selling medical office. And let's just use simple numbers for conversation purposes, so we understand the language that we're going to be getting into. So let's say someone buys a piece of real estate for $1 million. And we just talked about when they buy it, they get to depreciate. That's an expense. So they depreciate the $1 million. And let's just say they depreciate down to zero. They all the way down to zero. Then they look at selling that real estate 10 years later, and now it's worth $1.5 million. Most people think, oh, I bought it for $1 million. I'm selling it for 1.5 million. I have gains of $500,000. Well, that's part of the story. So yes, you do have that part, which let's say that on that 500,000 be 20% tax. So now let's put over on the side $100,000 of tax you owe. But the second part of the story is you have to recapture the depreciation tax. And the recapture is at 20% as well. So when you go to recapture that tax from 0 to $1 million, you have to pay tax on that number. So now that's another $200,000. So what was now $100,000 tax, you believe is a total of $300,000 of tax. So this is where the opportunity zone became a strategy for investors that have capital gains tax on stocks, capital gains tax on real estate, when they're looking to, hey, what's an alternative for me deferring or reducing this tax liability? So Michael, I just gave a lot of context to frame out how we can view this strategy for individuals. So I'm going to have you break it down. So break down the opportunity zone. How was it created by the tax cut bill? How do investors potentially defer or reduce their capital gains in this strategy and working with this in this area?
Yeah, this is what a great program this was. And it was really co-founded also by one of the co-founders of Facebook, who had so much money in his Facebook stock that he wanted to say, hey, how can I reinvest in America, but have some tax breaks by doing so? So the opportunity zones are designated areas created by and created under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 to spur economic development and job creation in distressed communities. I mean, what a great solution that is. So investors can reinvest their capital gains from other investments into these qualified opportunity funds that are focused on these zones. Every governor, each state has the ability of determining where those are at based off of economic factors. So these tax incentives include the ability to defer the original capital gains until 2026, due in April 2027, reduce the capital gains tax by up to 50% if held for a required period, and potentially eliminate any gains on the opportunity investment itself if it's held for 10 years. Imagine that, no capital gains if this investment, if it's held for 10 years. However, the timing, structure, and compliance requirements are critical to maximize these benefits. And not all opportunity zones are created equal. So it's important for investors to work with tax professionals to analyze every specific opportunity that comes across their table.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Because what I want listeners really hear is the ability to reinvest your capital gains. So instead of paying tax on that, on the recapture tax, as well as the capital gains tax, you can reinvest that tax into one of these programs, which is going into real estate development. Like you said, the founder of Google wanted to invest back into land development, real estate. And so that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a program that goes back into real estate development to defer the tax. And then now you get into the details of the program of when that tax would be owed. It'd be due in 2026, paid in 2027. And there's some other factors that go into the program that are beneficial, but need to go through the due diligence process to make sure it's suitable for you. So kind of really, let's just lay out. If there's a listener out there saying, what is the what are some of those timelines? What are those specific areas that investors would need to be aware of? And let's just lay out. I laid out a client, give an example of someone that is selling a piece of real estate that has high capital gains and recapture tax. But this could also be for someone that has capital gains tax from a stock. So why don't you kind of lay out some of those, who might consider this, and what are some of those timely measures look like?
Yeah. Thanks, Bryan. So opportunities and investments, they're really appropriate for investors who have realized significant capital gains and are looking for a tax advantage way to defer or reduce their tax liabilities. Key timelines to be awarded: it has to be within initial 180-day window to invest these into that opportunity zone fund. And it's for at least a 5, 7, and 10-year holding period to qualify for various levels of tax benefits. Because these investments are long-term and carry potential risks similar to other real estate investments, they may not be suitable for most investors because there's who do not have a high degree of risk tolerance and that long-term horizon, because most of these programs are very illiquid. I mean, a 10-year hold period, you're not going to get your money out in most cases because of that long-term hold period. So they have to have excess capital to be able to invest in these. And, due diligence is very essential. Investors should definitely consult with a financial professional or to ensure compliance with IRS regulations. And, Bryan, one of the things that really struck me, it's interesting because when you talked about, what are some strategies? I met a friend of mine who had a $1 million cash out stock investment that this company just gave him the year before. And I said, what did you do for tax strategies? She says, nothing. I paid like 50% of that in taxes. So he said, man, I really needed to know you a year ago. And that's something that's really, there's a lot of education of folks don't know that our tax code is there to allow for these types of depreciations and these types of deductions as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. So like one of the things I want listeners to hear is before you sell an asset, begin doing the planning. And it's not horrible, but you have more options and strategies open to you before you go and sell that highly appreciated stock, the highly appreciated real estate, the stock option that's coming in. Start the planning beforehand so you see what options are available. Because once you exercise that event, sell the real estate, sell the stock option, whatever it may be, once you've triggered that event, you may be taking some of the options off the table on the backside of it. And you're limiting, and then you may be forcing yourself into some time requirements to do specific planning within a window afterwards. So now you may be a little rushed. You don't have all the facts, little judgments a little bit, worried because the window's getting shorter and you see the tax bill. So we're having these conversations. So at least we're planting the seed. They said, all right, I'm looking at doing this thing. Let's have some conversation about what would be appropriate. What's the right strategy? Is this suitable for you? Now, Michael, I have to admit, I don't make many mistakes, I don't think, but I got caught up. Recapture tax is 25%. Capital gains was 20. So I want to make sure we're clear on that. That's the recapture tax is at 25%. So I knew something was wrong when I said it. And I was like, let me double check. But the recapture tax is 25% and the capital gains is 20. And, we're even talking about the capital gains tax laws changing depending upon administration that gets in there. So this is a constant breathing, financial plan is a constant breathing document for you personally. So it's always evolving and changing. And we want to be kept up with the times, the strategies, and the instruments. So Michael, before we jump off here, I just want to kind of leave it with, coming out of a West Point in the military, you just have a lot of leadership skills, biblical faith skills that you come equipped with. One of the things about Brain Wealth is talking about how we to create the thing that you want in the world, you have to have it created in the mind first. It comes in the mind and the spirit first to be played out in the world. So share with us some of your either morning routines that kind of set you for the day, to set you in the right state, that just, some people don't love the motivation and power talks and those things, but why they're so powerful. That's why they're there, because most people are talking down on themselves. So we really want to speak into people's lives. How do you do that? What are some morning routines that you do that just get you ready to take on the challenges and bless people's lives on a daily basis?
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. My perfect day would be getting up at 4 a.m., spending that first hour and a half listening either to something that a pastor might have talked about, or really getting into God's word and just really have that refreshment. And then, spending some time just doing some professional reading as well. And, getting to know different changes to the tax codes, or getting to know some different products, hitting the gym in the morning. I got a good Army buddy of mine, a friend I met from church locally. We hit the gym, and really you got to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually before you can really get the day off. So, and obviously with prayer, being able to pray with my wife or praying over myself, that's an ideal day. Does it happen every day? It doesn't. I'm not a perfect person to say it does, but those are things that you really have to take care of yourself first to be able to take care of others around you as well.
Better believe it. And I think that's what I'm hearing is you're training the mind and the spirit, getting that conditioned every day or when you can, because if it's not, the world will condition it. The world will the world will tell you the vision. And if you're not training yourself for what vision you want out of life, or what's vision for your heart, your family, it will be told by TV, the government, TikTok, whatever the world's telling at the time. And so, yeah, we really got to be conditioned to not let the weeds set in of the mind, and taking that hour and a half every morning. And I, just the fact of getting to the gym, and the body needs movement. If you look at I really try to teach this, but if you look at take a still water, a pond, and if there's no movement in that pond, what color does the pond become?
Nasty green.
Nasty. There are bugs and stuff.
Nasty.
So I really encourage everybody. It's movement is life. We got to move. We got to get our bodies active. And that activity releases endorphins and puts a smile on your face. You don't want to be like that stale pond. You want to be like the ocean flowing in and out. And you want to be training the mind so the weeds don't set in, and you're not getting told the vision from everybody else. You're creating that vision for yourself. And that's dealing with your money, your health, your wealth, and just the abundance that's available in life. So, Michael, as we close out here today, where would anyone interested wanting to reach out to you? How would they get in contact with you? What's your website, phone number, and share with us that.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. You can reach me at www.123-investing.com. We're also at 123investing on YouTube. And then you can reach me by phone or text at 813-710-4123.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for being a guest on Brain Wealth here. And look forward to seeing you next week at our conference and spending some quality time with you out there, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bryan. God bless you, brother. God bless all the listeners as well. Thank you so much.
You too, brother.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that conversation to us. It was an interesting one, and timely as well, as a matter of fact. So for those who are listening to the podcast and are thinking that they may want to reach out to you, Bryan, and have a further conversation, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be at Repple, REPPLE, wealthgroup.com, and or at Bryan@GARepple.com, or reach out to Michael as well. We're both available to kind of walk through these strategies and help serve, see where they fit, and give guidance.
Exactly. And for listeners, they are exactly who you think they are. This is not a put on, and you can witness that yourself by going back and listening to other podcasts that Bryan has done. And if you like this podcast and you're not already a subscriber, this part's easy. All you have to do is hit follow. Then you're a subscriber. And then every time Bryan drops a new episode of the podcast, you are notified. You can give it a listen. And I would ask you to go one step further. If you like this podcast, tell people about it. Share it with folks. Let them know that it means something to you. Find it useful. Word of mouth promotion is just an invaluable tool, and we very much appreciate it. Until next time, for Bryan and on behalf of everybody at the firm, I'm Bill Tucker, thanking you for taking the time to listen today and reminding you that you can go out today and make today a great day or not. It's your choice. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.